Hi guys, welcome to Learn Electronics Repair, and I have two boxes on my desk today. One you can see is a signal generator, and the other one, well, it's a plain brown box. So let's have a look to see what's inside this one. And by the magic of television, we have another signal generator. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to have a look, we're going to test and review these signal generators. I've not done this sort of review, so it's the first on the channel. Yes, you're shouting out. I've reviewed lots of 3-in-1 devices that have built-in signal generators. I also played around with like a heat kit type thing from AliExpress. You're quite correct. But these signal generators are not the same as those signal generators. The main difference with these ones is the fact they can do modulation, for example. So these can do AM, FM modulation, various others. Phase shift key, amplitude shift key, so on. And they also allow you to feed external signals in to modulate or control the generator. So why are there two on my bench? Well, I thought it'd be very interesting to have a look at this one, which is one of the more expensive models without getting silly about this, okay? And this one, which is the cheapest one I could find, which basically claims to have the same features as that one. So let's have a look at these two devices on AliExpress. Let's see how much they cost. And then let's take a look and see if the cheap one basically stands up well against the more expensive one. If you were thinking of buying one of these type of signal generators, I think this would be very useful to you. And here we are at AliExpress. This is the more expensive of the two, and there are two models, 60 megahertz and 80 megahertz. So this is the maximum frequency, and they come with the various types of plug. These accept a wide input voltage, so 110 volts, 220 volts, that's absolutely fine. I will just mention right now that I got these from AliExpress as review samples. So basically, with Ali, I choose what I want to review and they seed the balance in my account so I can then choose the item. So these were sent to me free, I will just mention that, but it's my choice of device and this is going to be my honest opinion, okay? So that's the more expensive one. I'll just give you a quick idea of what you can do with these. So you can see from extremely low frequencies, nanohertz into 80 megahertz. Built-in frequency counter, for example. It does frequency sweep, so this will do audio sweep. You can do linear sweep, logarithmic sweep, a cyclic sweep, so lots of options there. Dual channel output. You can control it from a mobile phone. This is Bluetooth, okay? So you can see basically what we have here, the forms of modulation. And we see the specifications, or rather technical specs here, okay? We can examine these in a little bit more detail afterwards because I want to see how the spec compares with the cheaper model. And the cheaper one I found, well, this was basically the cheapest I could see with these types of facilities. So this one comes with 20 megahertz or 40 or 60. To give you a direct comparison, that is the 60 megahertz of the Junctek one, okay? I do love that name, by the way. And this is the 60 megahertz of the East tester. So this is the ET3320C, okay? What I actually requested was the cheapest of these. So this is the 20 meg version and the most expensive of these. I think that gives you a wide range because at the end of the day, it depends on what you're doing, what frequency range you need. If you're doing audio work, which is probably mainly what I do, either of these would do. So yeah, it comes down to what you are doing. And bear in mind, this is not just a sine wave generator, it does square wave, pulse width modulation, and lots of other things, okay? So the cheaper one, again, comes with the various plugs, okay? Slight difference in price. And here is a spec again, so dual channel. We can see the sampling rate, resolution, bit depth, okay? It does internal modulation, AM, FM, and there's also external modulation options, okay? And these ones internal or external. So in general, this generator, okay, has pretty much a similar set of functions as the more expensive one. And that's what we're here today to try. So let's have a look at these. Let's connect them to the oscilloscope, see what the output looks like. And then let's have a look inside them, see how they are built. Okay, that's what we're going to do today. Now we've had a quick look at the specs for these signal generators, let's have a closer look at the hardware. To start with, here is the East tester. So in actual fact, ET3320, not just ET33. This specifies the frequency range or maximum frequency. So we have the two channels out. These show a ground symbol and external in. Okay. This is completely plastic. The whole case is plastic. There's a USB on the back. We have some little jumpers here or pins. We have, what does it say? TTL levels, TTL in, out, TTL 1 and 2, receive, transmit, ground, and plus 5 volts. This may be for some sort of external control. I'd have to have a look at the user manual for that. This looks rather more friendly. USB. This one got a bit scuffed, I think, in transit. I have to say, the whole construction of this, it's all plastic. It feels inexpensive. That's the kindest way to put that. We have two BNC to crocodile clip leads. We have a BNC to BNC lead. And we have the USB A to B, okay? And we also have the user manual. This is English. I think it's just English. Yeah, just English, okay? So user manual is there, a printed one. No doubt you could download a digital one as well, PDF. That's what was in the box then with the ET3320. Let's have a look at the Junctek. And here it is. So again, this is all plastic construction. Yeah, even the back is plastic. So DC 5 volts, although it didn't come with a power pack. Mains, USB, TTL external, so the same sort of thing. And again, they are actually labelled here, okay, upside down, but fine. This has sync in and out on the back, which the other one didn't have. Little stand, stands okay. Again, this has an extra connection on the front, so this one has modulation external channel 1, channel 2. We have provided leads again, so we have the BNC to crocodile clip. These feel basically the same as those, okay, from the other one. Also a BNC to BNC cable, power lead, and the USB A to B cable. Finally, of course, the user manual. This is better quality paper, looks nicer, bigger print, easier to read. This also has PC software. Here tells you communication protocol setup. Okay, this is where you can download the software, QR code. So we should be able to attach this to our Windows PC, and also this will work with Bluetooth, both for Android and iOS. Whereas the other one just mentions briefly in the manual actually that the ET33C functions as slave device, connect to external USB device, this port is used, serial port baud rate, but it doesn't really give you any more information about that, although that may be on the website. There's no mention of this one of Bluetooth either, so I would say it doesn't support Bluetooth, at least not the model which I have. And we see the two generators together. This one is also all plastic. This one feels, again, inexpensive. This feels cheap, I'll say the word. Okay, this feels a little bit more solid, it's heavier, I'll say that much. So we have the same sort of thing, 5 buttons. I'm thinking the interface is probably similar. The GUI control knob, which is a rotary encoder. This has extra buttons though. And here, wave, modulation, system, which I think is settings, sweep, voltage controlled oscillator, measure. So this is a frequency meter as well as a signal generator. This switches the output on and off. Channel 1, channel 2 select. Slightly different here, so wave modulation system, the same. Then this has measure and some arrow keys. It doesn't mention sweep on here, although it claims to have that feature, at least on the website. We can see clearly in the specifications, this does have a frequency sweep function. Linear, logarithmic, forward, reverse, round trip. So basically similar to the more expensive generator. But it doesn't have a sweep button on here, which suggests it may be a little bit more convoluted to find that feature in the menus or to activate it. Okay, let's power these up, connect it to the scope. This won't be a full technical demonstration of these. I'm basically going to have a look to see if it works across the frequency range and some basic functions. We'll have a play with the modulation and with the sweep generator. If you want to see more, this is ideal for the live stream. So let me know, guys, on the next live stream, which is around, what, the 21st of December, I think, just before Christmas. We can have a play with these, but it'd be great if you could give me some idea of anything you would like to see beforehand. So if possible, I can set it up ready to do that. Now, let's power this up. So, asking for language, Chinese, English, and there we see the screen. So 10 megahertz, amplitude set to 5 volts. If we look in the specification, we can see that the amplitude in fact depends on frequency. So up to 1 megahertz, up to 25 volts peak to peak. That's quite a lot. Up to 1 megahertz, 10 volts peak to peak. 11 megahertz, 5 volts, and at the full, well, this says 60, and 80 megahertz, 3.6 volts peak to peak. So that's the amplitude of the waveform we can get from this. It's set to sine wave at the moment. You can see these are all the various options we have. Sine, square, pulse, duty cycle, pulse width, cycle times can be set, triangle, yeah, ramps, and various others, probably less used ones, but it will certainly do these. Random noise, multisonic, yeah, sync a pulse wave. The square and triangle functions only run up to 15 megahertz, so it's only the sine wave which will actually go up to 80 megahertz. Let's have a quick look around, see how intuitive this is to use. So wave, yeah, we can see here various waveforms. Okay, and I think you can actually, yeah, you can change them as well, arbitrary, so you can program your own. Sine, square, pulse, ramp, yeah, so we can also switch this way as well. Okay, it's quite nice actually. That's nice thought out user interface, I would say. Okay. Modulation, again, yeah, nice little diagram. So we have modulation depth, modulation frequency. So yeah, choose your modulation frequency here, the depth, the source, so either internal or external. You could feed some music in, for example, set it to an AM frequency and listen to it on your radio. Source here also, shape and type. So this is our types of modulation. So basically you select from these menus the function you want to change, and then you can alter that using the rotary encoder here. Okay, this has a push button as well actually on it. So back to AM. System, what does this do? Oh, this is your settings. So the bleeps on or off, brightness setting, language. It's saying there's 39 built-in waveforms, 15 arbitrary waveforms, wave load method. Okay, what else do we have here? Yeah, fairly easy to navigate again. System information. Oh, page down. Oh, there's more, Luke. Yeah, there is more. And more. And then we can use the QR code to get the user manual. Okay. Sweep. Yeah, we can choose channel 1 or channel 2, I guess. Yeah, 1 or 2. Start frequency and end frequency. So here from 1 kilohertz to 10 kilohertz, the sweep time, how long it takes to do it. Yeah, we can step up or down here through the various options we want to change. The sweep mode, logarithmic or linear, it says line, okay. Oh, look, and now it's doing it. Yeah, so you set the parameters, you press the button. Look, you can see the sweep there going through all the frequencies, okay, that I've set up to 10 kilohertz and then back to 1. Oh, that's nice, okay. Voltage controlled oscillator. So this basically allows you to connect something external and it will alter the frequency depending on the voltage on there, okay. So again, we can select the various options here. Measure. So this is now using this as a frequency counter. We won't do this on today's review, but again, we can on the live stream if you wish, okay. And this switches the outputs on or off, yeah, so you can see directly on or off. Okay, let's connect this to my scope then and have a look at the output from the generator. And there we are at 100 kilohertz, okay. Scope is saying 99 or 100 kilohertz. Yeah, I just changed the trigger level, 100 kilohertz. I'm not sure how accurate this scope is. I've had this since about, I think probably 2010 or 11. Okay, it's never been calibrated. Let's go up to some high frequencies. So to do that, we can change the digit we were changing here. So you can see we can go up now, say to, well, 1.3 megahertz at the moment. Okay. This scope is a 50 megahertz scope. I'm 10.3 now, and the scope is reading that's about 10.2 or 10.4. Keep going. Let's see. We're just over 50 megahertz now. Exactly 50 megahertz. That is the specified limit for my scope, but I know it will go higher than that. So let's have a look. 70, 80. And that's the top of it. So that's 80 megahertz. Scope is saying, yeah, just over 80 megahertz or just under. But again, that's above the specification for that scope. I'm going to put this down, say, to 10 megahertz, and then let's try some modulation. So 10 megahertz modulation, and that should be amplitude modulation. Well, it doesn't want to sync on that. I'll go down to a much lower frequency, around 1 meg, see if the scope's happier to display that. But again, this is really a test of the generator, not my scope. And there we are with my analog scope. This is a problem with digital scopes, by the way. At least the lower cost ones just do not like complex waveforms. But we can see there, that is the carrier wave, the modulated frequency, which is the 1 megahertz. And we can see that is nicely modulated with a 1 kilohertz tone. So if I change the modulation frequency, 900 hertz, 800, you can see changing there. Just set the trigger. Yeah, so that's working really nicely. Let's try frequency modulation. So you can see on the generator, I actually now have a 10 megahertz carrier. Okay. Modulation is type FM. This sets the frequency deviation. That's the amount of modulation. So I've actually got 540 kilohertz. That's rather a lot of deviation. But the scope is showing it quite well, so I think you can see that the frequency is changing. Okay. That's how the FM looks on my scope. I'll just go down to 1 megahertz carrier. Okay. And I'm turning down the deviation. Okay. And I think you can see it quite nicely. That's how FM looks on my analog scope. Last thing I would like to demonstrate is the sweep, the audio sweep, which is something I would use. So this is going to do a 1 kilohertz to 10 kilohertz sweep. I've switched it on there. Yeah, you can see that clearly. Frequency increasing. Up to 10 kilohertz there. That's nice. So that actually makes a very nice audio sweep. And not only can you sweep the frequency, you can also sweep the amplitude and lots of other things with this, okay? Let's compare this to the cheaper option and see how well that works. Okay. So a very similar screen we see, really. Wave. Yeah, has a very similar method of use. We can step through with these buttons. Okay. We can change all the same parameters from what I can see. Frequency, amplitude, offset, duty cycle, phase. Okay, so frequency. Let's set this one to, let's see, we press the button. That turns on or off. It works in a different way to the other one. Okay. Yeah, this allows us to change the actual frequency settings. 10 or 20 megahertz. So that is the maximum for this one, okay. But there is an option which goes up to 60. So we'll set this to 100 kilohertz for now. I'll attach this to my digital scope. Let's have a look, comparing with the other one. This is similar to the more expensive model in as much as the maximum amplitude depends on the frequency range. Okay, so up to, well, less than 10 megahertz, 20 volts peak to peak. And when you get into the high frequencies, like the one we go up to 80, 5 volts peak to peak, so it says. So similar but different specs. And on my scope, it looks pretty much the same as the other one, really. So that's a 10 kilohertz. Let's go up in frequency. One megahertz. And the maximum for this one at 20 megahertz. It says exactly that on the scope. So I'd say in that respect it works basically as well as the other one does. Obviously less of a frequency range, but again that depends on your usage, whether that's important or not. And once again I've connected this to my analog scope because my digital scope just does not like it. I could try other digital scopes, but yeah, we're on the analog one again. So I have this set to AM. Okay, I have a modulation frequency of 10 kilohertz. I have the main frequency set to 20 megahertz. Okay, and if you look at the scope, which you see here, you don't see any modulation. Okay, with this one it's a little bit more convoluted but not difficult. So when we go into modulation, it's always set to off, and we have to go to control and switch it to on, and then we can see the modulated signal. Yeah, and I have to say, from what I can see, basically it's doing that just as well as the more expensive generator was. Let's try frequency modulation. Okay, I found frequency modulation a bit more fiddly to set up on this one, but I have done it. So we can see on the scope there, that's a frequency modulated signal. If I decrease the amount of modulation, you can see that. Or I increase the amount of modulation. So it does the job just as well. It's just a little bit more finicky to go through the menus, to be quite honest. Now let's try the audio sweep function. And to do this, we change modulation mode to sweep. Okay, on channel 1. I'm on a linear rise, so it's just a linear sweep. Source internal, 10 seconds. So basically set like the other one was, from 1 kHz to 10 kHz. And it is doing that very nicely. Okay, nice sweep there. The amplitude is staying constant, which is what you want really. So again, both of the generators are quite capable of doing that. And as promised, we can take a look inside. So this has this one PCB. That's actually the power supply. You can see there. There's another PCB, which is the front panel for the display. I can see quite clearly from this side that there's a big gap here between the non-isolated and isolated parts of the power supply. Although in actual fact, the non-isolated part is this side of this transformer, not over there. Okay, so maybe that wide track is also there for maybe reduction of noise, interference, crosstalk, something like that. But that's nicely divided away from the rest of it, at least the high voltage side. Okay, we have a ground lead which is connecting to the PCB. This is completely plastic, the construction, but the front BNCs are not. Are they connected to that ground? Let's have a look. So from the metalwork, yes. So they are grounded, okay. You may or may not like the method by which they are grounded, but they are grounded. This PCB is grounded, they're soldered to the PCB, so you can't detach one from the other really, okay. Not sure what this was, I just found it inside there. Interesting. But I don't think this was inside the thing, there was nothing rattling around, it somehow got in there while I was taking it apart, yeah. This connection here, which is not fitted, okay, there's a chip there also not fitted, so there's no space in the back for that to connect to. It says in the manual this has an optional modulation input on the rear. It does say optional, this one doesn't have that fitted. Is the USB connected to the same ground? No, so that doesn't connect to the ground on your PC, if you see what I mean. That doesn't connect to there. So if you are probing or obviously connecting this to some equipment, there could be some higher voltage there. That will not ground via here, but it will ground via here. So it's up to you how you want to use this. Here, okay, I have an isolated mains bench isolation transformer, so I don't really have ground around, but just be aware of it, okay. The other one, well, we have a separate power supply, completely separate. I would say that's the better design. This is the control board, the front panel for the display. This one again, grounded earth wire to here, and then from here to the PCB, and from the PCB to this point on the back, which is the earth connection or ground connection. This has sync out and in, which the other one does not have, so that's another difference between the two. This could be useful if you want to use things like the sweep generator and you want to know when it starts, effectively when it starts the sweep. Again, let's just check to see what's grounded to what in this one. Yeah, ground, the ground point on the back. That goes to all the BNCs. So you go to the ones at the back, yeah. How about the USB? No, again, same sort of thing. So it doesn't connect to the ground of your computer if you have one attached. So that's a look around at what's inside these. This one, by the way, the casing was all just clipped together, but I had to go through this label, which you can't easily peel off. I tried. There's one screw there, so I guess that's like a security screw on that one for warranty. This one doesn't have. Consider that an advantage or disadvantage, as you wish. Another thing I've noticed in this one is they have like copper foil wrapped all around the transformer, the switch mode transformer. That must be to decrease interference from the power supply. It's not grounded though, unless it has like some sort of plastic coating on it. Yeah, a Faraday shield, I guess you would call that. I went to this link here. It downloaded the software. It was easy to install. It came with a little readme to explain, but it was very simple. It basically shows you the same that you see here. Also, from this link, you can get the user manual as a PDF. I followed the instructions attaching the USB from the generator to my PC. It didn't seem to want to recognize the device, and that was quite simply because you have to have the power lead in as well to the generator. Okay, and here we see the software on screen. So from here it looks like you can control quite a number of features. I'm not sure if you can control all of them. I really haven't looked, but you certainly can control some of the features. Waveform, system settings, arbitrary, yeah, built-in wave, yeah, all the different waves here. Oh, modulations here. So it looks like you can probably control everything you want to from here. It appears as a COM port basically. I'm going to plug in the other model and see if this software actually recognizes it, because I don't see any mention of using PC software in this manual. And if it's somewhere online, well, if it's important, it shouldn't be that difficult to find. That's my point. It should be in the user manual. But let's just see what happens if we connect the East tester. Well, it comes up as COM3, the same as the other one did. We'll select COM3. Let's try connect to it. Oh, it sees it. But the version check doesn't work. So it's obviously locked not to use this. If there's a generic form of this software, I imagine it would work, okay, but we can't actually control it using this software. So, summing up, and we have to have a summing up, yeah? As a function or signal generator, for what I want to use it for, which is much more likely to be audio work, they both do the job, okay? For the FM modulation, for setting up or trying to transmit to an FM receiver, well, it starts at 88 megahertz normally, not 80, so even this doesn't go as high as that. But you could certainly use this to simulate the local oscillator or something like that. This one, there are models up to 60 megahertz, which would allow you to do basically the same sort of things. I didn't try every function, obviously, you can see that, but certainly the waveforms look good on both. The sweep generator on this worked. The sweep generator on this, which is under the modulation options, worked. And they both worked as well as each other from what I could see. This has the external modulation. This one doesn't. It does mention in the manual it's an option, but as to where you would find that model, I didn't really look. This one also has the Bluetooth. It also has the facility to connect to the app on the PC. This one may do, but there's no mention of the software in the manual at least, okay? So I would say for my use, which is probably as an audio sweep generator mainly, the AM and FM, nice for testing scopes to see how well they handle that sort of modulation. But that's the only real use I have for it, unless I want to play around with AM radio and transmit music to it, in which case I can do it. With this one, I can only, from what I can see, use the internal tone generator on this. The external in, again from what I can see on both, is for things like voltage controlled oscillator and that sort of thing. Okay, but I must admit I didn't go depth into that. I went into what I would want to use it for, and they would both do the job. Which one do I prefer? Definitely this one. And the main reason is the user interface is just easier to use. It's very intuitive. This one, at one point during that review, I had to ask AI how to do the frequency modulation because it didn't seem to work. And being able to control this from the PC is probably quite useful for me because I'm making videos. Yes, I have a use for that. But I think, you know, depending on what you guys want to do, price is probably the main consideration here. More expensive, nicer bit of kit to use, cheaper, and basically does the same thing within certain restraints. So, yeah, I'm not going to say one or the other. I can see a case for both. Yeah, this one and this, neither of these are lab grade equipment. This one feels inexpensive in construction, and this one honestly feels cheap. That's the best way I can put it, yeah. One thing I didn't mention in the review, the power lead and the USB lead to this one are particularly short. The BNC lead was actually the same length, but I had to use the power lead from the other one to get this close enough to my digital scope to actually display the two on the screen together to show you guys. Okay, that's just my bench setup. And the same connecting to my PC, I ended up using the longer USB lead off this one because this one wouldn't allow me to connect to the PC and have this in a convenient position on the bench to film. So just a little thing, but you know, I thought it was worth mentioning. So you know what, I'm going to leave it to you guys down there. What do you think? Do you have use for this sort of equipment? And if so, what are you doing? Would one model or the other suit you better? Is it more down to frequency range because they will go up to what, 60 megahertz, 80 megahertz? Most of the other parameters, amplitude and what, were similar. Okay, so yeah, do you have use for it? What would you be using it for? And which one would you choose? That's what I would basically ask you guys. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed doing this review. I think it was very interesting to look at these pieces of equipment just to see what we can buy at different prices. So let me know down there, and I look forward to seeing you all soon again on Learning Electronics Repair. Ciao for now, guys.